What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and so got some pretty big breaking news for you today. It's not good news, unfortunately. So let's just get right into it. It looks like the Dolphins ultimately have yet again made another very poor decision as far as, you know, player acquisition and personnel. Why? Well, as we know, running back Mark Walton is currently suspended 4 games. He's 2 games into that suspension. However, he will not be playing for the Miami Dolphins once his suspension is up. And in fact, his suspension actually, he could end up getting suspended again. Why? Because, as reports have come out, Mark Walton cut by Dolphins after allegedly assaulting pregnant woman. The Miami Dolphins announced Tuesday they waived running back Mark Walton after learning he was involved in a police matter. ESPN's Cameron Wolfe reported the release came after Walton was charged with aggravated battery of a pregnant woman. Walton, 22, has been accused of pushing the woman into a wall and punching her several times in her face and head. The woman is 5 weeks pregnant and Walton is the father, per Wolfe. We were made aware of a police matter earlier this morning regarding Mark Walton, Dolphins general manager Chris Grier said. We hold our players to a high standard and take these matters very seriously. We will have no further comment at this time. So, real quick. As to that comment by Chris Grier, right? We hold our players to a higher standard, blah, 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 all the gibberish, right? Well, if that was the case, then why did you bring the guy in to begin with? Sure, he's a young guy. Sure, maybe he can get over his issues, blah, blah, blah. Clearly not. But why would you even... He had 3 arrests. Was it 3 or 4? One of the two. He either had... it was 3, right? I think it says in here. 3 off-season arrests. So he had 3 arrests previously in the off-season. Maybe if it was 1, you're like, okay, maybe we can get this dude on the right path, blah, blah, blah. But no. So it goes back to, again, and you know, their massive inability to, you know, properly evaluate these guys. Whether, I mean, he has the talent, so they didn't properly evaluate him there, right? And he did some good things for us in his limited capacity. But he just proved again that he was not, you know, past whatever problems, and he's got serious problems. If he's going around beating up women and shit like that, I mean, his arrests before, I didn't care about the marijuana charge. But reckless driving, you know, possession of a firearm in some manner, one of the, you know, whatever, a concealed weapon without a license or whatever. I can't remember exactly what the charge is. But pretty serious charges. And now he just got arrested for beating the shit out of a woman who apparently is pregnant with his kid. And then Chris Grier says now, after all this time, look, because we can't, in this rebuild, they can't afford to be making this mistake. So if they're going to go and take flyers on guys who, but look at, you know, the other, like, all the first round picks that they've brought in, how well have they worked out? You could say Taco Charlton's coming along, but the dude's injured right now. He's not playing. And yes, he has 4 sacks, but at least 2 of those were cleanup sacks that he shouldn't have gotten. And, you know, whatever. Look at Robert Kimdichie, gone. Josh Rosen, what's going on with that? Right? So, you know, if that was the case, they could have had somebody else. You know, they could have been... But now, there goes one of the bright spots, one of the few bright spots that we've had, one of the few bright spot carryovers that we could potentially have for next year. And then look at Preston Williams. Yes, he's a great talent, and yes, he did some wonderful things for us, and yes, he can come back or whatever. But at the same time, now he has an ACL injury, and he has to recover from that, and that's going to be hard, and it's going to take a long time. And he's not going to return until you know, potentially the preseason. Then he's going to have to knock off the rust. It's going to be like a year, it's going to be like a rookie year over again, almost all over again. It's going to be like a pseudo rookie year for him, right? So, I mean, anyway, Walton received a 4-game suspension in early November for violation of the NFL's conduct and substance abuse policies related to 3 offseason arrests. He released a statement through his agent after receiving the suspension. As most of you know, I was involved in some incidents this offseason that I am now receiving a 4-game suspension for. I want to apologize to the Miami Dolphins, the fans, my friends, and family, and I take full responsibility for my actions. I want to thank the Dolphins for giving me this opportunity and will make the most of this chance as a person and player when I return. Walton was waived by the Bengals in April after his 3rd arrest and signed by the Dolphins in May. Well, clearly, and look, I hope the best for the kid, like as far as, I mean, he definitely needs to get whatever repercussions are necessary and appropriate for the crimes that he has committed, especially this one is the most heinous out of all. You know, reckless driving, he didn't kill anybody, okay. You know, fuck the marijuana charge. I don't care about that. The concealment of a weapon, whatever. Like, those are, you know, pretty big arrests and crimes to be charged with. But beating the shit out of a pregnant woman, like, way goes beyond that, right? Especially, wait, I just said she was pregnant, right? So she's pregnant. The woman's fucking pregnant. And apparently it's like his kid, so I don't know, maybe he's just pissed that he got her pregnant or something. But if you're going to take, but that just goes to show then you're not really taking responsibility in multiple ways, right? Anyway, so, I mean, look, it's just craziness. But it's just another black mark on this regime's record, unfortunately. So, you know, again, everybody else can look at this stuff and decide for themselves if they think that this organization is going to get it right. But I think that there is like massive, like overwhelming evidence to suggest that they're not. Also, I wanted to read this this article real quick from Kyle Krabs, even though I disagree with him a lot, but that just goes to show you that I am unbiased and objective, because I do give you guys the perspective of people that I very much disagree with, because I like to make sure that you guys have full context and the perspective of different people, so that way you have all of the information, and then hopefully you guys are critical thinkers and you guys are able to tell and distinguish between like truth and reality on your own. And then you can make up your own minds, right? But either way, you make up your own minds, right? I mean, there are people that are incapable of those things, and they make up their own mind, and unfortunately, they make the wrong decisions oftentimes. But it's up to you guys to make your minds up for yourselves. I'm just here as an arbiter to give you the facts, the data, the information, analysis, and perspective. And part of that is making sure you have the perspective of other people's, even if they have dissenting agreements, or dissenting opinions rather, even if we have dissenting opinions. So let's get into it. What is the ideal role with Dolphins for newly extended wide receiver Allen Hurns? The Miami Dolphins made a bit of a surprise decision when it was announced that the team had agreed upon a contract extension with wide receiver Allen Hurns. Hurns hasn't really been the most impactful receiver on the team, nor is he the most dynamic or promising athlete. And while the contract extension Hurns signed with Miami wasn't for any insane dollar amount, seeing Miami lock in a receiver with 17 receptions for 223 yards in 9 games this season was still something of a surprise. The details of Hurns' contract extension are now known. He signed a 2-year, $8 million extension with $3.27 million in fully guaranteed money. Well, I mean, it's been known for a couple days. A modest deal, but a contract extension nonetheless, which begs the question, what vision do the Dolphins see for Allen Hurns that would prompt them to prioritize an in-season contract extension? Now, that actually, I actually haven't read this yet. I'm reading through it the first time as I do it in my video. I didn't really care what it said, whether I agreed with them or not, because I want to give you other people's opinions. But I actually do, like, agree with this part of it anyway. I haven't read the rest yet, so we'll get there. But it has a good question. What vision do the Dolphins see for Allen Hurns that would prompt them to prioritize an in-season contract extension? So real quick, right? Because one of the big things for me right now is looking at who could potentially be carryovers to next year. And there aren't very many to really look at, right? Mark Walton's gone now, so he's not going to be one. But let's just focus on the wide receivers right now. So we have Preston Williams, who we expect to be back, although it's going to take a while. He's got to get healthy. He's got to knock off the rust, get back into football shape, all those things, right? And then he's got to prove that he can get back to his former self, right? So there's that. So Preston Williams is, you know, for the time being delayed and put on hold, right? We have Jakeem Grant, who they signed to like a 4-year extension. Now he just reached a milestone in a Dolphins franchise for having the most special teams touchdowns, right? So clearly he is a value to us in that way. And I've always been a huge Jakeem Grant fan personally. But he's also, you know, he also does produce a bit in the offense. Certainly he did more in Adam Gase's offense in that time that he had him. So far, I mean, it's still early in Brian Flores' time, so we'll see how that goes forward. Just as it stands right now, he has certainly more production in the time he was with Gase. But also, to be fair, he did, well, I mean, I guess that doesn't really actually apply. I was gonna say he also has had the injuries, but those injuries were during part of last year. He got hurt last year, so he was out a lot of last year, and that was a big reason why last year ended up being so bad for us, or, you know, back into the mediocrity cycle, because we had so many injuries, including him and like Albert Wilson, some of our key offensive players. Anyway, and then they, you know, Devontae Parker for another couple years. But with Devontae Parker and Jakeem Grant, they have outs in their contracts for next year. They can get rid of them super easy. You know, Grant and Hearns, they're only 2-year deals. And then, you know, Hearns. So, and then we do have Albert Wilson, but he's about to be a free agent. So, I mean, look, there's some all right potential there, but really, what is the vision there? Because, I mean, we just don't know about Preston Williams yet. I mean, we can say that he's got the talent, and we can say that he's, you know, produced a decent amount for us while in the limited time. That's fact. But we just don't know what the status of his future is. We don't even know the status of the future of Parker or Grant on this team, or Hearns, right? Because, you know, Parker and Hearns have short contracts. Albert Wilson's a free agent after this year. Grant, I mean, we'll see. He is secure for the next few years as of right now. But then, you know, what is the vision? So as it stands, it would be Parker, Preston Williams, Allen Hearns, and Jakeem Grant. Well, you know, Parker, I mean, it took him 5 years to finally get healthy and then finally, like, you know, start doing anything. But to his credit, and to the credit of this coaching staff for helping to further his development, even though obviously the vast majority of his development and stuff came in his previous years, and it's not like he didn't produce it all in his previous years. It's just that he had only produced up to what would be considered, what I would consider like a number 2 receiver, even though he was drafted to be and has the skill set to be like a true number 1. And has never actually lived up to that. But when he was on the field, he produced up to a number 2. And the biggest problem was him being on the field. He just couldn't stay healthy. And, you know, I mean, because the problem was never does he have the talent, right? We always knew that. And in the offseason and the preseason, and even on the time that he spent on the field when he was healthy, he produced. So his biggest thing was he could never stay healthy, finally did, and now that he is fully healthy, and he has to be a primary focus in this offense because of how bad it is, and so on and so forth. So he is getting fed the ball a bit too. But but he's made his mistakes. He hasn't been overly spectacular. He finally, for the first time, hit, you know, a career high in receiving yardage at 137 in a game, which is good. And he is on pace to potentially break 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, which is good. But in the full context, again, he really hasn't lived up to his potential, right? Or certainly not his status as a #1 draft pick. He's getting closer to that, but he's definitely super far away from his potential still. And he still needs to make big strides. I honestly, I've said for, you know, a little bit now that I think he should just, you know, go someplace else, but this coaching staff does seem to have him on a good path, so we'll see how that works out. So maybe he can, maybe between him, I mean, honestly, if I'm being real though, I do like the pairing of like him and Preston Williams with guys like Albert Wilson and Jakeem Grant as well. I actually think that would be a really great receiving core, because you'd have the two big Allen Hurns really is just kind of like you know, whatever. But I mean, I guess, you know, he's a solid backup or whatever at least. So, I mean, and he's not like overly expensive. So like, I don't hate the deal. But it does bring the question of like, you know, what is their vision for the future? Because that's the thing is it's super hard to determine what their vision for the future of this team is, because all they say that their vision is we're building for the future. And look, we have a bunch of draft picks and draft capital, and we're going to be and cap space rather, and we're going to be super aggressive in free agency, and don't worry guys, we're going to make sure that we get you the franchise quarterback, even though we have no idea that guy, whoever it may be, is going to work out. So like, you know, anyway, let me just finish with this article. Hurns isn't going to be a volume receiver for the Dolphins, nor should he be. Hurns runs nice routes and is experienced enough to make himself available as needed versus zone coverage or against the blitz. The role for Hurns that makes the most sense is to be the vet. Granted, Hurns is barely a year older than Devontae Parker, but Hurns is the savvy player who makes the most of his reps without elite physical tools. That experience and mental sharpness has ingratiated Hurns with the coaching staff, and as a result, he's been rewarded. Look for Hurns to serve as the stand-in for Preston Williams while the rookie recovers from a torn ACL. In 2020, Hurns will cede the role back to Williams and serve as a reliable depth presence who can step in at a moment's notice or serve as the third or fourth wide receiver. There's value to experience and mentorship, and it seems that's what the Dolphins prioritized in paying up for Hurns just a few days ago. So I actually do agree with most of that, although I'm not so sure Hurns is going to prove to be, you know, that. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, can he step into that veteran leadership role, right? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, you know, I can't even really speak to the places that he's been before and if he's taken on that kind of role before, you know, whatever. But, I mean, if he can serve that purpose, great. I definitely think it's true that, like, because I said it before I read it, right? Like, I think at the very least he could certainly be a good serviceable backup. Certainly can have some playing time while, you know, we're waiting for Williams to get back. And you know, with like Parker, Preston Williams, Jakeem Grant, at least, I mean, we'll see if Albert Wilson does stick around or not. I'd venture to guess he probably actually wants to get out of Miami. I don't know, you know, I don't know him personally. But he is going to be a free agent. I have a feeling he's probably going to end up walking, but I would like to keep him. Anyway, so that receiving group wouldn't be, you know, a terrible group at all. I actually think it would be pretty good. But we'll just have to, you know, we'll just have to see how it plays out, right? So there's definitely possibilities and good things that could come from it. We'll have to see how it plays out. And so I do think that was an overall solid, especially considering, you know, the price tag. He's not overly expensive. I mean, but look, at the end of the day, though, I guess part of the point is that, you know, Hurns has this, you know, cheap 2-year deal. Devontae Parker has, you know, a cheap, you know, short deal. Jakeem Grant does have a 4-year or 3-4-year contract, whatever it is, but they haven't out with this next year. So, like, a lot of that tells me that they don't really have that much confidence in these guys. So we'll just have to see if they end up developing, if they end up, you know, settling into their roles and so on and so forth, and their group, and let's see if they do end up, you know, with their new quarterback that they're gonna have next year, blah blah blah. Anyway, so we'll see. I do think the contract extension for Allen Hurns is a solid one. I mean, it certainly can't hurt at this point. And we do need people for next year regardless. So I think that's solid, but clearly they made yet another terrible decision with the Mark Walton thing, and that has clearly proven to be a major disaster at this point. Because you know, it's all it ended up being was a glimmer of hope that ended up just getting squashed because of, you know, all the off the field stuff. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys right now. I hope you guys enjoy my videos and my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Make sure you share my channel and my videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.